Hey, everybody, and welcome to Dentistry Unmasked. I'm Pamela Maragliano-Muniz. With me, as always, my buddy.
Hey, David Rice. How are you, Pam?
Oh my gosh. So I thought I was fine.
Okay.
And I mean, okay, all right. We're dentists, we're business owners like you and I, like many people have a side hustle. And so I've gone my entire life, like 47 years, assuming that everybody operates at a certain level of fatigue. Like some days you feel pretty good, some days you feel like garbage, but on any given day, if there was a sunbeam and I could like sleep in it like a cat, I'd probably do that. And I thought that was normal. All right, at least that's been my normal. Until this lady shows up in my office. No, she doesn't just show up. I scheduled her to come in and spend 2 days with my practice.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was eye opening for so many reasons. So before I get to that, let me introduce her, Dr. Erin Elliott. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and any opportunity to spend time with you and Dr. David Rice is, I will make it happen.
Well, the blessing, honor, all the things are ours because
For
you're
sure.
not just a pretty face and a really good rapper. Okay. So Erin comes to my office and I knew everybody would love her because who doesn't? And so, we're going through our day, getting all this education on sleep. And I buy a device, she brings a bunch of devices. And so we kind of, we have patients come. And so we're like, all right, so our patients are going to go home with, take a sleep study. And she's like, anybody want to take one? And I'm like, I'll play along. This is what I'm thinking. So I go and I like do the whole thing to find out the next day. I mean, like, it's taking a second to even admit I kind of have sleep apnea.
Uh-oh.
Wouldn't you say that? Or you're going to say, no, you don't. Stop being a baby. You have it.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's okay for you to use because
Yeah.
kind of still there.
It's like being kind of pregnant or like kind of
Yeah.
something else. Yeah. No, it's like, no, I mean, I definitely have sleep disordered breathing. And so while I say, yeah, everybody's a little bit tired, everybody's a little bit this, that's actually not normal. And there's a lot of things that we as humans, as Americans, women, men, everybody sort of grow to accept. And there's things that we really shouldn't. So, Erin, would you share with us, like, you might have a sleep problem if?
Ooh, I like that.
I do have to admit, Dr. Pam, I saw your whole countenance just kind of like change. I wanted to give you a moment to just kind of process too. I could see the demeanor change in when you saw the results. But there's such a gamut. So unfortunately, the way that the sleep medicine world works is they focus so much on this one metric. Well, that metric takes out the humanness of it. That metric puts a number that physicians focus on rather than the person. And so if we really take the time to kind of uncover um, how many ways that their sleep is affecting their life, then we see like light bulbs. So many people think it's normal to wake up to use the restroom 4 times a night. So many people think it's normal to sleep in separate bedrooms. In fact, a Washington Post article came out that said sleep divorce may just save your marriage, meaning sleeping in separate rooms may save your marriage, when in reality, it's taking your spouse away from you and missing that intimacy. They're trying to make it cool, but people are moving bedrooms because they can't handle the snoring or they can't handle the tossing and turning. And then on top of that, women and men kind of present differently. Men present as usually the snorer that says they sleep just fine. The only reason they snore is because their whole family snores or they have a deviated septum. The snoring doesn't bother me. It's my wife that keeps nagging me. And then the women who are probably suffering the most symptomatically, because they wake up several times a night, 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. especially. They toss and turn. Usually there's a little bit of anxiety because that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system is kind of on all alert all night. And so technically they don't show up as really having moderate to severe sleep apnea. They're usually mild or just a little bit under. And that's because their body keeps fighting to keep the airway open and it's winning, but at the cost of good sleep. So they're usually insomnia, clenchers, wake up at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., tossing and turning. And so if they go to their physician and say, hey, I think I have sleeping issues, they're like, oh yeah, it's just insomnia, here's a pill. So my whole message, my whole goal in hitting the road, which coming up will be 12 weeks in a row, is to spread the message that there are women suffering and there are men suffering, and the women tend to do something about it because men just sleep right through it. They've always slept this way. They don't wake up very often. And they're usually only there to stop snoring, to get their wife to stop nagging them. So there's so many people that are struggling, and it's the young, fit people, it's the old fat man, and anywhere in between.
So Pam, I think one of the things that impresses me most about you is you're already at like this crazy high level of education and knowledge, and you share and you teach so many people, yet you understand how important it is to bring somebody equally intelligent like Erin into your practice for 2 days. How do we bring this message to the average dental practice and help them understand, at least a role they need to be playing in this process?
So this is a peeve of mine, actually. So there's nothing more challenging, frustrating, disappointing. I take a lot of hands-on courses, and frankly, hands-on courses are not cheap.
Yeah.
And so I might fly somewhere, spend 3, 4, 5 days with like one of my heroes to learn composite layering or prepping or whatever. And then I come back and it's like, I come back on Monday and I'm like, I don't use those burrs anymore. I took a class. And now I'm trying to, during a huddle or before a patient or in between patients or whatever, try to educate my team in 5 minutes what I learned in 5 days. And it's not freaking possible. And so when you want to bring an initiative or something into your practice, I believe so wholeheartedly that you need the team to buy in and you need them to be educated too, especially something like sleep. So obviously prosthodontists, super into restorative, like whatever, but I'm also really into preventive and getting people healthy and getting them healthy, keeping them healthy. And it's not just about their teeth. And I also have a really strong hygiene team that believes the same thing. So knowing that this initiative does not land just on me. In fact, it's amazing because the way Erin teaches you, it's really not even about you as the dentist. It's your team that really takes the reins on this. You need her to come to your practice and to do that, because if we don't start, all kind of brainstorming systems as we're learning and all of these things, it'll never take off. So if you want to bring on sleep, like this is who you have to call. And I know at the end, we're going to do that. Now, the other thing is when you said my demeanor changed, it was kind of funny because number one, I knew at some point in my life, I would need my gallbladder out. Like, that's just like facts. Like everybody in my family, like I knew I like cheese. Like one day the gallbladder's got to go. So besides the gallbladder, like this is my first diagnosis I've ever had. Like I don't have blood pressure, like you name it. Like I don't hear bad news generally from a physician of any sort. So I get my results because again, playing along, just trying to like participate with the group. I'm getting my results like with my team, which is fine. I'm not like embarrassed by it, but I felt like I had to like show them I wasn't going to die tonight. Like they were like, are you scared to go to sleep? Are you going to be okay? And I see like all these eyes like looking at me like with all of this concern. And I'm like, I promise you, like, I'm fine. Well, I'm going to be better than fine, but I'm fine now. So it's funny. So I had to like hear it, process it, but then also kind of console my team who was like worried I was going to like drop dead right there during class. So it was kind of funny how that all kind of went full circle. But no, I think, you need the team to buy in and to be part of this whole initiative. That's really the only way you're going to do it. And I think, Erin, you've done this so beautifully. And I know you go and you lecture. I've been to your lectures and I love them. But to have you in the office for 2 whole days, it was just incredible. I'm really grateful for it because I think my patients, my practice, and my team are better for it.
Well, I loved seeing your team get excited. Like Sarah, I'm
Sarah.
learning the accent, David. Um, Sarah was like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that." Like she basically kind of took the reins so that it's not always the doctor doing it. Like the team was like, "Okay, so we're gonna schedule them here." Like everyone was involved, everyone was excited. They had already went home just after the first day and talked to all their family and friends, like a wait list to get the sleep study done. And that's the beautiful part, is like that's the whole reason we came all the way out here, so that it really gets the whole team on board. And I know that when a doctor comes to my course alone, how much of an uphill climb it's going to be when he gets home. And I did my favorite part too is when I tell the team what patients are gonna say. And I was like, sometimes you create so much urgency, the patient's afraid to go to bed that night. And it was like, every man says they snore because the deviated septum. It was like all of these things that I said they were going to say, the patients came in and said them. And they all look at me like, okay, are you like predicting the future here? So it was pretty funny.
Did you tell them you're like a mentalist?
Yeah. Seeing the eyes open though, it's my favorite part. Like seeing the light bulb moments, and then going around with the team to have them share those light bulb moments so everyone can learn from them. It's pretty powerful. I always just leave on such a high, without drugs, of course.
The best drug you need. This is what I learned
Yeah.
in my course. Is
Yeah.
oxygen.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. If you have
Turns out we need it to
oxygen,
live.
who knew?
Crazy.
And who-
Even the patients we had were getting into it. Like he was listening to all of these little nerdy details and getting in on it. So it was really fun. You've got a good crew out there in Salem, Massachusetts, and I always love going to Boston because I love the way they say my name. And I always go up to Boston people. I'm like, say my name. They're like, what is it? I'm like, Erin. And they go, Erin.
You have to say Erin. So it's so funny. And I'm not like a linguist in any way, clearly. Everyone who knows me knows that's a fact. But I feel like there's such a difference between Erin and Aaron. And I feel like I need to hear the difference. So for me, you'll always be Erin. And when I met you, you were like, say my name, say that again. I'm like, Erin, Erin.
So many things are wicked by you, Pam. So
They are. I'm a New Yorker, so I haven't adopted that one yet. Even
that's
still.
good. Stay true to your roots, will you?
Hell
Stay
yeah,
a New
I will.
Yorker.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Erin. So, because a guy, and I'm going to try to make up excuses just like every other guy, is like the whole deviated septum. Is there any truth to some of the things people use as an excuse and they're just overplaying it, or is it just not even really a thing?
So it is my goal to write a book on the psychology of men and their health. So not all men, obviously, but I'm talking about certain generations, certain demographic of man, where they deny everything. So it is my goal to really kind of dig down and say, what is it about feeling better that concerns you? Why are you so hesitant to admit that there's something that's holding you back from feeling better? What is it about doing a home sleep test that concerns you? What is it about finding out that you stop breathing at night that concerns you? Like, it's the weirdest thing to me how much denial and obstinance there is in men. And they do blame their snoring on deviated septum. And I think it's just an admission that they're getting old. But if we could change that stigma that sleep apnea is an old fat man's disease, I'm like, we are talking to petite young women whose airways are small, whose airways are wanting to collapse, but they're so young and healthy that their body won't let them. So they sacrifice good deep sleep. They're constantly in a light stage of sleep, constantly waking up, light sleeper, anxiety, toss turn, wake up at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. and clenching, grinding, TMD pain. And they're ignored for years and years and years unless they can meet a dentist that's in tune with this. And so there is the gamut of young, fit female to the old fat man. If the symptoms are there and the story is there,
Yeah.
treat, not just these numbers that physicians 40 years ago grabbed out of the sky and it's become the Bible. So there is so many people that need help that present in different ways. And that's the difference between progesterone and estrogen help keeping the airway open, they're upper airway dilators. And in menopause, those hormones, decrease. That's when insomnia symptoms start. And then they're told, oh, that's just menopause. And so there's so many people that we can help with that aren't just the typical old fat man that you think of with sleep apnea. So I've even gotten away from using the term sleep apnea because people just get defensive.
I'll tell you, like, I feel like, I think you ladies would agree, like all of our patients are motivated by something different,
Yeah.
but, and I'm hoping you're not going to myth bust me on this, but feel free if it's not true. But so I was, teasing before we went on about how anesthesia and sleeping at nighttime and noise, background noise and stuff. But I will tell you, since we moved from our last place where there was a lot of like external distractions in the evening and she couldn't sleep very well and I didn't sleep very well. And we're now in a place where it's really quiet and we're actually getting much better sleep than we had maybe the prior 5 years. We both have dropped like, I don't know, like 7 pounds we've always eaten healthily and we exercise, but I'm like, oh my God, we're just actually sleeping. Our bodies are replenishing and they're starting to do what they're supposed to do. Like, you guys are nodding, so I'm thinking I'm still in good shape. This is a thing, yeah?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And Pam, I might have you answer this question first because I see how much you learned. But weight loss, weight gain, and how you sleep are integrally related.
Absolutely. So pressure's on. So right off the bat, I'm thinking two things. Number one, when your body is fighting all night long to breathe, your pulse goes up, your respirations go up, you don't get into a deep level of sleep, but your body is also dumping a bunch of adrenaline and a bunch of cortisol to be able to maintain some semblance of an airway. So number
Yeah.
one, that's not great. Number two, when you're tired, you don't want to do anything. Like you just want to like go take a nap or, how many patients fall asleep in the middle of their 1 hour dental appointment? Like that's actually not normal. And so, people are just more tired and they're not prone to get up and exercise after work or get up early and exercise before work because they just don't have it in them to do that. So, two ways that sleep will impact weight, and I'm sure there's plenty more.
Yeah. The other is in deep sleep, we have two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, that regulate. And ghrelin tells us when we're hungry, and leptin tells us when we're full. And then there's also studies that show that people with untreated sleep apnea, because they're so deprived of energy, actually crave higher carbohydrate foods and make less. They make just unhealthy decisions because carbs are there for energy, or the quick, convenient, kind of food that takes healthy food takes some effort. And so the frontal cortex is dampened as well. You just don't make good decisions. You reach for those caffeinated beverages that tend to be sugary. So there's a whole cycle that if better quality sleep, not just sleep, but getting an airway while you're sleeping so that you can get into those deep cycles, that delta wave sleep, so you can get into REM sleep where memory, learning, and mood is stabilized. All of those things are going to give you a better chance at changing those lifestyle subtly. And as I say, don't give me 50 pounds. So many people focus on, I got to lose 50 pounds. I'm like, give me 5. Just start with 5 and then do 5 more. So then they don't feel so defeated and go back to the way they used to live.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple more myths that we need to bust, because a lot of people will say, well, I don't have a sleeping problem. I just want to sleep better. And therefore I take melatonin or I take some sort of herbal to help me sleep better. Would you please share what's this deal with melatonin and what's the deal with some of these medications, herbals, whatever that we might take? And do they actually impact our sleep?
Well, interestingly, I just saw an article or a research, summary on THC and sleep, and there is no consensus whatsoever. It's literally by the person. Like, THC does not necessarily help you sleep. It can wake you up more. And then for some people, it actually works. So people often reach for what's natural. And, they have ZQuil, they have Tylenol PM, there's all these over-the-counter sleep aids. But most people reach for melatonin because it's natural. Well, the reason it's natural is because it comes from within our own body. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is released, melatonin is released based off of light through your retinas. And essentially, melatonin just tells our body it's time to go to sleep. And so the best thing to do is to stimulate your natural melatonin by having a regular bedtime routine, limiting blue light, not watching TV, or especially kind of high dramatic, exciting, true crime TV, and turning the lights off, reading quietly in bed, not getting into bed until you're tired. So there's all these sleep hygiene habits and a bedtime routine that will stimulate natural melatonin. And your body temperature has to go down 2 or 3 degrees in order for that to be released. Well, a lot of people are resorting to sprays and pills and think melatonin is natural, but it's in a pill or a bottle that's not FDA approved. And so they did a study where they took bottles of melatonin, and within the same bottle, there were pills that had 0 amounts of melatonin to 300 times the amount that you needed. And it's a much different hormone. It's a hormone. So that's really hard to replicate in a pill. So my soapbox for melatonin is, yeah, maybe short-term jet lag. But the biggest point I have to make on melatonin is that it's a sleep initiator. It does not keep you asleep. So it is not a good insomnia remedy because it's not keeping you asleep. It's simply telling your body it's time to go to sleep. And so the rest of the night you're kind of on your own. So valerian root, magnesium, which relaxes muscles. There's other things that you can do to kind of help calm your body. But if someone would say that they're a restless sleeper or they're not calm when they go to sleep, or it becomes a stressful event, then having that bedtime routine, having oxygen by way of either a CPAP or having an oral appliance. So there, your airway's not collapsing, your body's not in that fight or flight. You're not constantly getting interrupted from that deep sleep. Your sleep cycles become more regular. Then an appliance can give you the most natural drug you need. And as we alluded to, that would be oxygen.
So it all really starts with us as dental professionals having the conversation, right? So, we're talking about, you know, there's little ideas that, we can look at a medical history, we can talk about their health conditions, you can look at them, you can ask them, but there's also obvious oral, um, you know, structures, pathologies, whatever you want to call them, that you can identify that will tip us off as health professionals that a patient might have a sleep disorder. So sometimes if they're not so overtly open to having that conversation, there's things that we can see clinically that can help us initiate this conversation. Would you share, I don't know, a bunch of different things that we can look for that, that will let us know that this patient is not getting the oxygen that they need while they're trying to sleep?
Yes, in fact, I've created a whole checklist of things, but I would say the big ones to me and even to prevent the overwhelm in team members. I'm like, if you're just looking at clenching and bruxing, and I have a great visual as to how that's related, but with clenching or bruxing, you're basically bracing open the airway. A forward wear pattern is almost like a dead giveaway, because what is that telling me your brain wants to do? It wants to open up the airway. A deep bite, those patients tend to be more prone to overclosure and crowding of the tongue and having a airway obstructive event. Then a battered uvula, what does their airway look like? Is it big and swollen and narrow? Is there enough room for the tongue to fall back, or is there crowding of that airway? So acid erosion, because 66% of untreated sleep apneics have acid erosion, and it may not be just heartburn. If we see that erosion in the teeth, I always ask further questions like, do you find yourself clearing your throat a lot, or feel like you have postnasal drip most of the year? And so we can see that erosion in the teeth. And then as well as bruxing, grinding, deep bite, swollen airway, and acid reflux, deep bite class 2, retrognathia. So there is a whole much more than that. But if you were to say to a patient, hey, you have a scalloped tongue, I think you have sleep apnea, scalloped tongue doesn't have a whole lot of impact in their life, because they're like, yeah, so I think that's a perfect opportunity for the team member to bring up other things. So I see you have a scalloped tongue. To me, that's not a decorative term. It tells me there's not enough room for your tongue. You're pressing it up against your teeth, taking on that indentations. Tell me more about how you sleep. Do you wake up refreshed at night? Has anyone ever told you you snore? I see you're taking 2 different blood pressure medications. Is it hard for you to control your hypertension? Kind of bringing it back to some of the pain points. Does your wife ever complain and sleep in another room? So kind of bringing it back to opening the conversation and finding what might motivate them.
That's really powerful stuff. And I think this is a hard lane in dentistry, it seems, for people to really truly integrate. So I love the simplicity of seeing the things that we already see and then making the connection on a deeper level and just asking more questions. I've been shocked at the things people share with me. And, you start walking that road of people being sleepy during the day. And like, I've had moms like, I fall asleep when I pick up my kids from school. And I'm like, and as soon as they say that, right, the tears are just rushing down their face because they know they're putting their child in danger and things like that. I think we've just got to make that connection for people so they have that moment where they're like, oh my God, yes, this is why all these things are happening. So then, like, what's next? How do we move the needle?
The good news is we can help.
Yeah.
Instead of having to refer you all over the place, let's first see what's going on. And I think it will just open your eyes to why you're feeling the way you do. So you don't keep going on thinking you're crazy or that this is normal, that there is hope for you. And when I repeat back, do you wake up at, do you toss and turn, wake up at 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. and, clench and all these things? They look at me like, are you in my bedroom? And mostly the reason why I do that is because I want to reassure him. I just said, it's like I've seen this before. I want you to know you're not alone and you're not crazy. You don't have to continue on like this. So we still treat them with an oral appliance, but kind of giving them a glimpse of, I don't have to feel like this the rest of my life. And we're here to help, and we have an option for treatment. It's like you can see it visually. Like they relax. And when we get the sleep study, there's so much resources there to kind of tell their story. And that's where I feel like my favorite part is, and Pam can tell you this, we spent a little too long on this section, but I just think it's so powerful, where we go over the sleep study. Even when it shows their AHI is low, I'm like, nope, the story's still here. And I was training her team how to look beyond just the AHI and look at all the data and relate it back to how the patient's feeling. And it's just, you can visibly see them relax and just be like, okay, like I want this, like almost to the point where I don't care what it costs. Like, let's just get this going.
Prior to having you come to my office, I feel like I knew the importance of it. I know it's a thing. I know that there's a lot of people that could benefit from it, but implementation was something that was definitely lacking. But one thing I think, if anybody can take anything from our conversation today, is that we as dentists have a very unique opportunity to intervene well before they end up with a CPAP or something like that. And in some cases, we can improve, what their numbers or the flow rate or whatever they need for their CPAP, but we can get them help much, much faster. And so I really think that taking a course like yours, like you have, is something that we all, even if you don't want to implement it, you need to learn this, because we need to help our patients get healthier. And unfortunately, we're out of time, which is just really sad, because I really want to talk more with you. You just have to come back.
Will you come back, please?
Will you please come back?
Yeah.
Maybe after I get my sleep device, we can talk
That'd be
about
fun.
it. I'm going to look so good. Wait, you guys won't even believe it. Where can people follow you? Where can they learn where your lectures are? And how many people, I feel really fortunate that I was able to get on your calendar. It was not easy, but it's certainly worth it. How do we, get you to come to our practices? Like, tell us the tea.
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram, ErinElliotDDS, super easy, no fancy names. And then where else am I? ErinElliotDDS.com. I have like my speaker website, which I usually keep pretty up to date as to what events I'll be at. And you can reach me through there as well. And so I love the variety of what I get to do, as long as I'm spreading the message that there's a lot of people that need our help, including the skinny people.
No, it's a big deal. Honestly, every person that took a test in my office, and I feel like if you saw my team, looked at my office, you would not think anybody has any issues whatsoever. Everybody in my office had some sleep disorder, one way or another. So the prevalence is there, and, we need to be there to help our patients be healthy. So Erin, thank you so much for your time and your expertise and hopping on with us today. And I can't wait to see you again, because you just promised to come back.
Yes. I can't wait to hear how Sean and everyone else is doing that we got to meet that day.
That's amazing.
I can't wait to tell you. All right, everybody. We will see you next week for Dentistry Unmasked. See you later.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at ErinElliotDDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.